Welcome to the monthly vinyl voyage. In September 2022, I started an experiment, building myself a new music collection from scratch at a rate of no more than one album per month. 2 years later, it's formed 24 great albums, and I'm taking a bit of time to look at each of the purchases, to learn more about it, and to reflect on what it means to me, and to digress onto any side notes that I find that are interesting. Thanks for joining me today. When I first started thinking about what I wanted in this music collection, I knew I was going to want some Stones. But if I was to go the album route, I could have spent the whole first year just buying Stones albums. If I were to try and choose one album, probably would have gone for Let It Bleed. But they have so many other good songs beyond that album. To avoid having a collection entirely made up of Rolling Stones albums, I'm going to want a greatest hits, a compilation. So my record of the month from August 2023, album number 12 in my collection, is Hot Rocks by the Rolling Stones. This compilation was released in the US in 1971 by London Records, and it brings together their biggest hits from 64 to 71. Now, there are a lot of caveats on what I've just said, but those are the bits that make this story interesting. Today I'm going to talk about what this album means to me, but also talk about another Stones compilation and about a choice I thought I was making between them, and how considering that decision eventually got me thinking about what I'm trying to achieve with this collection. It seems a bit superfluous, but let's start with a brief history of the Rolling Stones. And I do mean brief, because they're still making music today, nearly 60 years after they formed. So I'm not even going to attempt a complete biography. First, I'm going to go talk about blue plaques. If you're a younger viewer or viewing this from outside the UK, blue plaques are these circular ceramic markers that we put up all over England to commemorate where important historical events happened or where notable people lived or worked. They're administered by English Heritage, and the range of what gets commemorated is quite wide. Some mark moments of earth-shattering human importance, and others note where a minor Victorian author spent their childhood. Walking around my home city recently, I managed to uncover 25 different blue plaques, which gives you an idea of how liberally we hand these things out. In 2015, a blue plaque was put up at Dartford train station to commemorate where Mick Jagger and Keith Richards supposedly reconnected in 1961. The story goes that Mick and Keith were childhood friends, but they bumped into each other again when Richards noticed Jagger carrying blues records. And this chance encounter and discovering their mutual love for American blues and R&B led to the formation of the Rolling Stones. After this blue plaque went up, Bill Wyman came out to say that the story's rubbish. He saw it as an opportunity to kind of set the records straight, and said that actually it was Brian Jones who formed the band. He chose the name and individually recruited everyone for it. According to Wyman, the Met at the Station story has become the accepted origin myth, but it's just not true. Whatever the exact details of how they came together, the Rolling Stones officially formed in London in 1962 with the lineup of Jagger, Richard, Jones, Charlie Watts and Bill Wyman. They were positioned as the rebellious counterparts to the Beatles' clean-cut image. While the Beatles conquered America with I Want to Hold Your Hand, the Stones were covering raw blues songs with provocative lyrics. Their manager famously encouraged this bad boy persona, reportedly saying, "Would you let your daughter marry a Rolling Stone?"
What about the standard charge that no one will let their daughter marry a Rolling Stone? Well, what they wouldn't mind if the daughter married a Beatle. Here's the living proof.
Two of them already dead,
I married one. You married a Rolling Stone? What do you think?
Over the years covered by Hot Rocks, from 64 to 71, The Stones evolved from blues covers into their sort of pioneering rock originals. They went through their psychedelic experimentation and then returned to blues rock basics and entered what many consider to be their kind of golden period. But this wasn't just musical evolution, it was really survival against remarkable odds. The band navigated the turbulent 1960s counterculture, embracing the rebellious anti-establishment ethos that made them targets for the authorities while risking their mainstream appeal. Unlike the Beatles, who largely avoided controversy, the Stones fully committed to their dangerous outsider image. The period also saw devastating personal tragedy. Brian Jones, and the band's founding member and original leader, had become increasingly unreliable due to debilitating drug use. He was asked to leave the band in '69 and less than a month later was found dead. Perhaps most dramatically, the Stones organised what became one of rock's most notorious disasters, the free concert at the Altamont Speedway in December of 1969. Intended as a West Coast answer to Woodstock, the event turned violent when the Hells Angels, who'd been hired as security, killed 18-year-old Meredith Hunter right in front of the stage while the Stones performed Under My Thumb. The tragedy, captured on film for the documentary Gimme Shelter, could have ended their career, but by 1971, the fact that the Rolling Stones had survived all these potentially career-ending crises and were still a functional band, indeed, they entered what many consider to be their creative peak, was really remarkable. My earliest memory of the Rolling Stones isn't from a record playing or the radio. It's actually from a movie. I remember watching Jumpin' Jack Flash on UK television about 1990, starring Whoopi Goldberg as a bored bank employee who gets caught up in an international espionage plot. There's a scene where Whoopi's character realises she can crack a spy's secret code because they're both massive Rolling Stones fans. The title song becomes this plot device, a shared cultural touchstone that creates an instant connection between two strangers. And as a 10-year-old watching the film, I remember being impressed by the idea that a song could serve as this kind of secret handshake between two people who'd never met. Looking back now, it's hardly the most sophisticated cinematic moment, but it was my introduction to the Stones. Before we talk hot rocks, we need to talk Get Stoned. As I said, once I started my collection and I knew I wanted some Stones, and ideally a compilation, quite early on in my crate digging at Revolution Records in Royston, I found this copy of Get Stoned. It's a double vinyl compilation from '77 with 30 of the Stones' greatest hits. Get Stoned was essentially the UK's answer to Hot Rocks, which was originally released only in the US and available in the UK as an expensive import. And Get Stoned was designed to fill the gap in the British market, giving fans access to a comprehensive Stones collection without paying the import prices. And it's a really comprehensive record. So this one album filled one of my monthly purchase slots and gave me access to practically every Stones song I wanted to hear. Another appealing thing about this record is that it's a genuine artefact from 1977. It's a piece of vinyl that has lived through the decades, probably sitting in someone's collection for years before making its way into the second-hand market. And there's a certain honesty in this kind of faded cardboard. The idea this record has its own history, its own story from its previous owners and countless plays. The the slightly worn sleeves and the sort of faint surface noise. And even the way this was conceived as a product of its time. This is designed like one of those double cassette tape compilations that were popular in the 70s. So for a long time, Get Stoned was the Stones album in my collection, and I was pretty content with my purchase. But as I started researching this album for this project, I discovered some interesting things about Get Stoned. This was very much conceived to cram as many tracks as possible, often at the expense of sound quality. The tracks were likely made not from the best masters, and you can hear how they've squeezed them to fit them onto 4 sides of vinyl. And I started to think, well, maybe the Stones deserve to have a record in my collection with better audio. After all, I've gone to the lengths of getting, better speakers and an upgraded turntable and a fancy stylus, but then I'm playing this super compressed record. So this led me down the Hot Rocks rabbit hole. So a bit of backstory here. Hot Rocks was released December 20th, 1971. It was compiled by the Stones' former manager, Alex Klein, without the band's direct involvement. And it was designed to maximise the commercial potential he had invested in their back catalogue, focusing squarely on their biggest commercial hits. Released in the US, it was an immediate success, reaching number 4 on the Billboard album chart and going on to sell 12 million copies. It became the band's best-selling album in America. So I began searching for good copies of Hot Rocks, and not just vintage copies, but ones that would deliver like kind of the audiophile experience that these classic tracks could have. And that eventually led me to this special UK Record Day reissue. This is a limited edition audiophile pressing that promised top-notch quality. Now I should mention something about Record Store Day releases. There's often an element of artificial scarcity involved. They're limited pressings, special colours and exclusive releases that create a sense of kind of urgency among collectors. And it sometimes feels a bit manufactured, this rush to grab something before it's gone forever. But whatever the truth about the scarcity of these productions, this one certainly has better audio than the more authentic Get Stoned collection. So when my copy finally arrived from Denmark, where I imported it from, I put it on the turntable, and the difference was immediately apparent. Even before Mick starts singing "Time Is On My Side," you could hear the additional depth and clarity in the instruments. The dynamics are preserved, and there's actual space between the instruments. So you could hear the nuances in the performance that get lost in the more compressed Get Stoned versions. So this ticked what I think of as the kind of audiophile box, the pursuit of the best possible listening experience, where every detail of the recording is preserved and presented with crystalline clarity. So I found myself in this collector's dilemma. Do I keep the comprehensive collection with its nostalgic character, or do I upgrade to the focused compilation with superior sound? And at first I thought I had to choose. I was trying to optimise my collection along a single axis, either authenticity and comprehensiveness, or quality and sonic perfection. And initially I decided that I would replace the Get Stoned with the expensive Hot Rocked, following the philosophy that quality trumps quantity. But as I kind of lived with that decision, I've come to realise something important, and that's that both of these albums can have a place in my collection because they fulfil different needs. Some days I do want the audiophile enjoyment of the Hot Rocks reissue, The chance to hear Keith's guitar work with stunning clarity, or catch every nuance in Charlie's drummings. But there are other days when I want that nostalgic connection that Get Stoned provides. The feeling of holding this genuine piece of vinyl history, complete with its imperfections and character. There's something deeply satisfying about playing a record that someone else has owned and loved, and it carries the patina of time. So both records bring me happiness, and ultimately that is the aim of this collection. What's to love about these compilations? Both these albums showcase the Stones' remarkable evolution from blues covers to pioneering rock originals. They both cover 1964 to 71 and represent the band's transformation from scrappy London blues enthusiasts to the world's greatest rock and roll band. The track listing read like a blueprint for classic rock radio. Satisfaction, Paint It Black, Ruby Tuesday, Jumpin' Jack Flash, Honky Tonk Woman, Brown Sugar influenced a generation of musicians, which makes both collections feel special in that they don't just work as historical documents. These songs continue to sound fresh and vital decades later. Whether I'm hearing them through the warm, slightly compressed sound of Get Stoned or the crystal clarity of the Hot Rocks reissue, I'm struck by different elements in each of the ones I listen to. Well, that was album number 12 for August 2023. Or perhaps I should say albums, plural, representing the Rolling Stones in my collection. What started as a simple choice between two compilations turned into a deeper reflection on what I was trying to achieve here. I'm sure I've made mistakes in my research and my presentation. We're only human after all. But thank you for listening.